about some of the house rules, if you like. In other words, the guidelines around coverage and camera positions. So a considerable amount of time was spent trying to resolve those issues, but also explaining what's going to happen in the next few days, few weeks, and few months. Now, my colleague Valde Karelse is, of course, in Marikana at the copy, but we will be going a moment of silence or prayer where leaders of religious communities and other people will be leading that particular session. And then the judge will then read, or members of the commission will read the names of the deceased. In fact, that will be done by Commissioner Togota as well as Commissioner Hemraj. Both of them are assisting Judge Ian Farlam. We'll, of course, talk.
The only activity here at the moment is people cleaning up the koppie. We've seen a lot of that today. There are bulldozers here, men with trash bags. They're basically sanitizing this environment ahead of the commission coming to have a look at what happened here. The commissioner referred to the fact that there were markings at the koppie that indicated where some of these miners had died that had been defaced. He will look into that. He will also be talking to some of the people who were here on that day of the 16th of August. Well, Vuyo, the Commission has basically asked anyone who wanted to make submissions to it to come forward. Now, we do know that Lonmin said that they have a lot to show the Commission, and they've asked the Commission to spend a little bit more time here. It was initially only supposed to be for today, but we understand that it will carry on tomorrow. And some of the family members will be showing them, but also some of the miners who survived the 16th of August, some of those men who were here.
About like what they're doing around housing and how they are taking care of them. Do we have any sense at this stage as to what it is exactly that Lonmin hopes to take the commission through?
Well, Vuyo, I get the sense that Lonmin really wants to show them the socio-economic condition of these miners. Lonmin's always maintained that they take good care of their miners. They give them a housing subsidy, and if they don't take them up on that housing, sanitizing this environment ahead of when the judge and his commissioners come and visit it. Because obviously Lonmin don't want them to see the absolute squalor in which some of the miners were living, and the squalor that surrounds this koppie, where we saw most of the protest action taking place over the last 6 weeks or so.
Well, that's interesting, but just to bring the viewers up to speed with regard to what this commission will be looking into specifically around Lonmin, it is actually that even if the gandas really clean up, but the commission will in fact be going to the bottom of the core issues of what happened over those 10 days or so, which resulted in the unfortunate loss of those 45 or so lives. Valde?
Well, indeed, Vuyo. I think the sense people give you here when you speak to people at involvement or their lack thereof in this dispute as well, and that will be probed by the Commission too, both the NUM and rival union AMCU. Of course, we saw Lonmin workers embarking on this illegal strike representing themselves because they thought that the unions didn't have their interests at heart. And I think that is definitely what the Commission will be looking at. I'm sure they'll be speaking to people here at Nkaneng. As I said to you this morning, the men were walking past here explaining to each other, and they were
any violence, and whether this was reasonable and justifiable in the particular circumstances. So indeed, the police conduct will be probed as well, but also the conduct of the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, AMCU, as well as the NUM and its members and officials, whether they exercise their best endeavors to resolve any disputes which may have arisen between themselves and Lonmin, in other words, between Lonmin. This morning when you got there, did you sense, was there any of that tension still remaining? What's the atmosphere like in Marikana right now?
It's definitely a different environment. When I came into Marikana this morning, or at Nkaneng around Lonmin's Marikana mine. When we came in last week, we were here for most of the week last week. Of course, the workers returned to work. Now it's settled down. There aren't any children playing outside, as the people started cleaning up here yesterday for some reason, and they don't know why, but they assume it's got something to do with the commission. The roads are open. People had barricaded the miners, the striking mine workers had barricaded the roads around the informal settlement and around the mine so that the police couldn't come in. Today, all of those barricades have been removed. As I said, there's bulldozers, there's men working, there's women going about their business, women getting their hair braided on the side of the road. As I said, informal trade.
There's going to be a satellite link where some of the people who are directly affected by this tragedy will be witnessing the work of the commission from. She is right next to the Kopi where for most of the time the miners were meeting, discussing their working conditions. That is the place where they would sit around and discuss what to do next, and of course that's where so we are actually preparing for that, waiting for that to happen. It should happen in the next minute or so. So hang in there. We will be bringing you that live feed as soon as we are ready. Now let's go back to Valdi now, who is in Marikana. Valdi, later on this afternoon, do we know if Lonmin has in fact been able to
characterized by a lot of violence and plenty of animosity, intimidation, weeks and weeks of that. So they definitely need to rebuild that trust. I think Lonmin recognizes that, the workers recognize that. I've also spoken to some of the workers' representatives who say that underground you can only rely on each other. So those mine workers start to need to rebuild that trust, so that when they do eventually go back underground, they really wouldn't have a mine. And we've seen the financial trouble this illegal strike has brought them into, but also the consequences thereof. I mean, Lonmin has closed down some of the shafts. There is some rumblings of retrenchments among some of the workers. That's what they're saying. So definitely, I think Lonmin recognizes that trust and that bond needs to be rebuilt, but it has to come from both sides. Those mine workers who went on the illegal strike, but also Lonmin mine management, Vuyo.
The team of evidence leaders.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. For the evidence leaders, the list is as follows, and I will spell some of the names because of one's experience and what one sometimes sees in the transcripts. My name is Mbuyiseli, that's M-B-U-Y-I-S-E-L-I-W-A-N-A. That is the lot of us, commissioners. Thank you.
Before I call upon the parties and their representatives, I've been asked to give a brief outline of the mandate of the Commission. The terms of reference are fully set out in the proclamation to which I referred earlier. Broadly speaking, there are 4 themes. So, the actions of each trade union, the relations inter se between the trade unions, and also the actions of the non-unionized members, miners who were not members of the trade unions. And then finally, we're asked to investigate the conduct, the actions and omissions of certain government departments: police, mineral resources and labour. It may be that we will deal with the other themes. That is the way we propose doing things. It may be that it will be necessary for witnesses who've testified in relation to, say, the first theme to come back and testify in relation to some of the other themes as well. But these are matters which we will deal with as we go along. It seems to us to be very important that in relation to the first theme, we should proceed to investigate so that I can see the red light, and thereafter, when you finish speaking, turn it off. I take it the first representative I must call upon is the representative for Lonmin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I appear for Lonmin. My name is Azar Baum. I'm an advocate practicing at the Johannesburg Bar. Appearing together with me for Lonmin are advocates Mike van As, Horace Shozi, and Terry Matau, who's also senior counsel. We are instructed
to make available an interpreter's tool for me to use, but thank you for the offer. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, I appear on behalf of the Legal Resources Centre, together with my learned friends, Mr. Tembeka Ngukai Toby, Mr. Advocate Mr. Michael Power, who may also be an important witness in this case, and more particularly even today, because he visited the scene and made notes and took photographs of what he found shortly after the event. We are asked who our clients are, Mr. Chairman, and unashamedly, Iguani, I hope I do justice to the pronunciation, the family Mabia, the family Mdizeni, and Shagasaza, not one of the deceased persons. We took action, and they had discussions with the district surgeons that were doing the postmortems. They have filed a provisional report, but have reserved their right to express definitive opinions once they had access to the reports that were drawn up by the medical practitioner. We have not done it, and I would like, for the purposes of the Commission and the public at large, very briefly to say that we did not want these documents to become public before they were in their final form, and that the first recipient of those documents should be you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the Commission. And we are glad to see that are needed. He is available and ready, with the possible exception of needing time to copy the photographs that he took shortly after the event in order to be distributed to the Commission. And what we are here for is because of part to do any favors to any of the other parties. We are here to help the Commission to come to a just conclusion in relation to this very serious matter. And what I want to say finally, Mr. Chairman, is this, that you see that we have a large team. We have others as well if they are needed, either by the evidence leaders or by the Commission.
Uze uthi lo msebenzi uhambe ngendlela efanele commission ifumanise inyani uchazele kokuba isizathu sokuba khona kwabo apha hayi ukuthi bamele umuntu othize bafuna ukuba kwenzeke intando yomthetho siseko we-Republic of South Africa. Enkosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bezos. Thank you for the assurances you've given.
Mr. Chairman, that because I don't look at my... Yes, we have already assured the givers that we will cooperate with them fully.
Thank you.
Bake bathetha bavana ke nalaba baveza ubungqina ngoba kuzawusebenziswana kule meko ngokubambisana okukhulu.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, I head the legal team for the National Union of Mine Workers. My name is Advocate. Change from one day to another.
Of course, Mr. Tip, there shouldn't be a problem about that.
Yes, I can add the assurance that we will not allow any of those circumstances to affect the work of the Commission. It will at no time impede the progress here.
Ubechazela umhlali ngaphambili kokuba bona bamele i-union.
Released, among other things, pending the outcome of this commission. All of them were charged with murder and attempted murder and another assortment of charges, which were all provisionally withdrawn. The second category, Mr. Chairman, is an organization called the Lonmin Community Committee, which is a broader community structure that was formed, among other things, to assist the broader community, which is not.
Thank you, Mr. Mpofu.
Lobethetha Advocate Tudali Mpofu o thunyelwe apha zifem ezintathu zabameli ama-attorneys mele ezintathu apha okokuqala abangu-270 ababanjwa bavalelwa baphinde bakhutshwa umele i-Lonmin committee eyabumbeka emva kokuba kwenze babanjwa kodwa bakule 270 ekhululwe.
I've been asked to ask those who come on record to start by mentioning their names for the benefit of those who will transcribe these proceedings and then mention the names of the entire team. It looks to me as if you're next, Mr. Badenhorst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honourable Commissioners. My name is Cassie Badenhorst, SC. I'm a member of the Johannesburg Bar. Bar undertakes to always be represented by one or more of the team members as may be required, and we also provide the assurance that we will be fully supportive of the Commission's requirements. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Badenhorst.
Advocate Badnos. Ubale abanye abane asebenzisana nabo bemele bona ke i-Department of Mineral Resources.
I'm assisted by Mr. Matibedi, Mathibedi, SC, Mr. Ngalwana, spelled Ngalwana, Ms. Sello, Sello, and Ms. Banoi, representing the South African Police Services.
Lobethetha Advocate Isimenya.
For the following 20 families of those who died in the period concerned. Mqineni Noki, Mongezeleli Nteneja, Mzugisi Sombeta, Patrick Akona Jijase, Babalo Mchazi, Mafolisi Mabia, Michael Ngweyi Mukwenya. We are instructed by the Socio-Economic Rights Institute Law Clinic. My attorney, assisted by a candidate attorney, is Osmond Ngomezulu, and the candidate at item number 8 of your agenda, because I intend to bring an appropriate application at that stage to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Nsebenza.
Lobethetha ngu-Advocate Mr. Nsebenza SC. Chaza okokuba yena umele if izizalwane za laba abasweleka abangu-20.
Brainders, I think.
Good morning, members of the Commission. My name is Tim Brainders from the Johannesburg Bar. Heidi Barnes, Stuart Wilson, and Irene de Vos, all advocates at the Johannesburg Bar, and I appear for the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, known as AMCU. We are instructed by an attorney, Teboho Mosekili, from Seri.
Is anybody here from... Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, my name is Willem Leroux. I'm from the firm Brink Cohen Leroux in Johannesburg. We represent the Chamber of Mines of South Africa and will be representing the interests of members of the Chamber. To a very great extent, our role will be reactive as opposed to proactive, but certainly in regard to relevant matters.
there anybody else who hasn't had an opportunity yet to put him or herself on record?
Ubuza uchairman ngokuba kukhona omele i-Department of Labour kakucaci ngokuba ukhona.
Mr. Chairman, if I may be of assistance, the Department of Labour is not legally represented.
Ngokuba hayi bazojonga nje ukuba kwenzekani kuyawuthi ke kuhambeni kwexesha xa bebona okokuba kuyadinga ukuba khona ummeli ozabamela bese bamthumela.
That appears to conclude item 6 on the agenda, the introduction of the parties and their representatives. We move on now to item 7, where I'm asked to give guidance on the process and procedures regarding the in loco inspection. Flat area next to the koppie, where we understand some of the dead bodies were found after the shootings. We will also see an informal settlement which immediately abuts on that area. We will also see what has been described to us as the Klein koppie, which is another koppie behind the first koppie at Wonnekopp, where it is alleged the living conditions of the miners. We will look at the hostels. We will go to the informal settlements where many of them lived. And we were asked by Lonmin to include what was described as the formal housing, which is also was available to some of the miners. We also invite members of the, representatives of various parties to point other spots out to us as we go on another inspection. But whether that will happen is a matter that can be decided upon later. Yes. I also want to say that we were told by the representatives of Lonmin, who wished to point out various things to us, that they anticipate that the inspection will not be completed today and will have to resume tomorrow. And we've made provision for that in the loco inspection. I must give the interpreter an opportunity to interpret what I said, and then perhaps it's best to begin with Mr. Pam, because your leader, Mr. Berger, had something to say about the inspection, and it's also been dealt with in correspondence that the Commission has received from Lonmin, and then I'll give the other parties' representatives a chance to say what they wish to say on this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Ubechaza umgcinisihlalo kokuba sigqibile ngokuba kwasweleka abantu ababini namapolisa amabili ngomhla ka-13 ku-August. Bese kuthi emva kwalokho bese kuyawujongwa ke imeko zempilo yabasebenzi phaya okokuba injani. Kuyawuyikwa nasehostela kuphinde kuye nasematyotyombyeni apho bahlala khona nakwezinye indawo ekuthiwa i-Lonmin ihlalisa abasebenzi. Kuyawuthi emva koko bese kuthi ke abamele.
It wasn't clear to us at that stage yet which areas would be the subject of the inspection in loco on the first and possibly the second day. We consequently alerted the Commission to the fact that there may be certain areas where people might want to conduct an inspection which have this difficulty that they fall under the mine safety regulations embedded, and so they would need an induction program, and that would take a bit of time. It does seem from the areas that you've referred to now, Mr. Chairperson, that those are not, we should have somebody appointed to do a sketch just in relation to the different areas we've visited and how they exist in relation to each other, so that we have a clear idea of what we're talking about when the evidence is led.
Proceedings are going to be filmed. The inspection is going to be filmed, so we will have a record of what's pointed out. But it may well be that a sketch will make things easier to follow, and that's a matter we.
In loco namhlanje kuba kuyojongwa phaya noko kunjalo ke xa ethetha nalaba asebenzisana nabo bathe indawo abazokwazi ukuthi bayolathe bona kulapho kwasweleka khona i-security zakwa Lonmin. Ubecela ke ku-chairman okokuba ngeke nakubekwe umuntu ozokwazi ukuthi abhale isketch abhale imap yokuba kuye kwayiwa lapha nalapha nalapha. Usethi umgcinisihlalo kuyena hayi yonke lento yenzeka apha izawufakwa
to as scene 1 at Wonderkop, close to the bigger copy, and scene 2, which is close to the smaller copy all of that being adjacent to the informal settlement. And thereafter, the scene of the earlier killings where the 2 policemen and some civilians had been killed. And may I ask at this stage, Chairperson, Commissioners to...
Google, lena ayinikeza abababambisene nabo.
And Chairperson, in the vicinity of the Gopi, we will also point out the spot or site where Mr. Isaac Twala of NUM was killed. Thank you, Chair.
Uthi ke phaya ngasekopini ke sizawolatha nendawo apho kwabulawa khona uIsaac Twala owe National Union of Mine Workers owe NUM.
The members of the Commission or any of the parties want to know the distance, he is prepared to point out at the inspection what he saw, and he'll give the measurements that we consider of some importance in relation to the results of the happening.
Yes.
Bechaza umnumzane ubizwa sokokubalwa.
Chairman, we are in a dilemma. And may I request your indulgence to explain why we are in a dilemma, relevant also to the inspection. My attorneys, one from each other, and they took instructions from the families who were instructing us. Firstly, they were confronted with families who had not been advised that there is a commission of inquiry that is taking place, that is going to inquire into the deaths of their loved ones. Assisting in that regard for closure and for everything else. It is their wish that this should be so. Not having known that the Commission of Inquiry would be sitting and would be for facilitate this. We believe that of all the parties that are represented here, if any one party would be worthy of being assisted by the state at taxpayers' expense, they are the parties that ought to be assisted. And they are assisted at state expense other than Lonmin, who in any event have got deep pockets, I would submit. Indeed. We don't want to be facetious about the submission. I cannot overemphasize it. For instance, some of the families lived here. And part of the inquiry is to look into your orders to make sure that this matter is dealt with expedition. And the families and those who instruct me are as keen as everybody else that we must get as quickly to the truth as we can. But you said the balance must also be need to be fully prepared. It's an insult both to yourselves if we will be so glaringly unprepared. Driving to this commission this morning, I had to ask both my attorney and the candidate attorney to leave their cars and come with me so that they can brief me on what they had been able to pick up in their visits to them, being that they would be keen to know who points out what place in relation to any of the things that they have heard. So, though my sense says yes, it is important and critical that this matter must be dealt with expeditiously. My other sense tells me that will be affecting his client. I do not have that luxury. In fact, my clients have been so late coming into the field because all other names, and I will not mention them, that were available suddenly they became unavailable when their assistance could not be guaranteed. Now, it's going to be long, is that we must get, I would call if it was a litigation, which unfortunately it is not. We should get, all the parties should get in a state of readiness. State of readiness. We have made several requests to the Commission. We have asked for information in the following to be arranged by date and including officers deployed from the regular police force, from the tactical response unit and the special task force. We asked for the name of the officer in charge in the operation on the 16th of August. We asked for the identity of the officers who decided to be able, on the basis of what we have, to consult those who are living, who may be eyewitnesses. Because it's all very well for us to get to the scene and be told, hopefully by the members of the SAPS, this is where the razor wire was and all of that. This is where so-and-so died. This is where your client died, as to whether they will give a statement. And therefore, we have a great deal of problem even taking into account what you said, Mr. Chairman, and we thank you for that, that if there is an application at a later date, that application will be dealt with on its own merits at that time. There may well have to be a second, or by anybody else that this commission will be sitting. And we have very clear instructions from them. We would like to be there when it happens. Those are some.
You said you were going to bring an application. You haven't told us what the prayer is, what the relief is that you seek in your application. Would help us if you told us that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's because I'm rather reluctant to make the application.
It's information that, of course, we haven't got, which Mr. Semenya may be able to help us with. So perhaps I can call on him to respond to that part of what you said, and also to tell us the attitude of his clients in regard to the application you've made for a postponement for a fortnight. And then I'll ask the other advocates to do the same. After Mr. Semenya has spoken, I'll ask Mr. Madlanga, and then the other representatives here may wish to deal also with the application you made. Mr. Semenya?
Were stationed where the members of the TRT were stationed and where the STF were stationed. They will, with some measure of effort, also try and show us how the movement of the people on the day was on the 16th. They would be able to tell us where was the water cannon stationed, what shifts they did at various dates, so that information we can collate and forward. We do mention on the record, though, that our effort has not been greatly assisted, or would have otherwise been greatly assisted if we had had the benefit of the post-mortem reports. They would be able to help us put the cartridges that are found with the members who had
information. In other words, who, for example, the list of subs SAPS deployees in Marikana on the days, who was in charge, who gave orders to do this and that. We instructed the police that were there to actually use roll out razor wire, who instructed them to shoot, because they're saying they need those details, because that in local inspection that
is because people are so this has been in the news so much. Some people have actually pitched up here. They're standing on the koppie taking pictures and so on. Maybe I'll just step out of shot quickly and I'll show you just some of the sites that the Commission will visit. This is the bigger koppie that Herbert will show you. He will just pan to the right there. But next to it is the second site that the lawyers refer to, which is the small koppie where some of the mine workers will also...
But also the formal area where Lonmin says it is placing, or it is where it is putting some of the mine workers. Well, this is where we're going to end this broadcast from now. You're watching a live broadcast from outside the Civic Centre here in Rustenburg, which is the seat of the Commission of Inquiry. Just to give you that brief